Good morrow, lovely little ghosts, and welcome to the Dark Orchard for Laura Watson's 13 Days of Vlogoween.
Thanks, Anton. Without further delay, let's get this started. Happy Halloween, everyone! As was said in my intro, this is a Vlogoween video. More specifically, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Poe was always one of my favorite authors. I loved the creepy spookiness of it. And actually, when I was in the 8th grade, I had a teacher. His name was Mr. Hale. He was the most amazing teacher because he embraced my weirdness. And when I think about Poe, I think about all those times in the 8th grade where everyone else thought I was strange and he embraced it. He even had me speak to the class about being different and embracing your individuality. And when we started reading Edgar Allan Poe, he got me really into it. And the story that we read in that class was The Telltale Heart. Way back in the 8th grade, I learned why a raven is like a writing desk. So Poe, of course, is one of my absolute favorite authors. The reason I decided to do a video like this is because last year, when I posted the pumpkin spice video and did the narration for Andy, a lot of you guys said you have the voice for reading, I could listen to your voice forever, it's a soothing voice, all sorts of really amazing compliments that I just don't deserve, but I really appreciate them anyway. So when I was thinking back on that, I was like, well, what can I do to go back to that? And then it just hit me, read an excerpt from one of your favorite stories. And because it's Vlogoween, and Halloween is spooky time, why not read a spooky story? So I'm not going to read the whole thing. Poe's short stories are still sort of long, but I am going to read a spooky excerpt. And if you ghosts really like this kind of video, maybe I can make it like a monthly thing. Just one video a month, reading an excerpt from something. I am going to be using a different microphone, so for the remainder of the video until my outro, you won't be seeing my face, you'll be seeing some really spooky footage that I took in one of my favorite graveyards. So you'll be hearing my voice, but it will just be the cemetery, and you can just kind of close your eyes and focus on the spooky tale that I'm telling. So without further delay, let's get started. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot from out of the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open. Wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon that spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker, and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet, for some minutes longer, I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder, louder! I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor! The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once, only once, and in an instant I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through a wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, and the arms, and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber, and deposited all between the scaffoldings, and then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatsoever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught it all. When I had made an end of my labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men, who introduced themselves with perfect suavidity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. While I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was signiturely at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But, ere long, I felt myself getting pale, and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat, and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness, until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew pale, but I talked more frequently, and with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was low, dull, quick sound, much such as the sound a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles, in a high key, and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore, I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting, I grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder and louder and louder, and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think, but anything was better than this agony, anything was more tolerable than this desertion. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die, and now again, hark! Louder, 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 louder! "Villains!" I shrieked, "dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here! It is the beating of his hideous heart!" And that was the ending excerpt from The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave it down in the comments. And a question for the comments: what is your favorite work by Edgar Allan Poe? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come around again soon. Say bye. Bye!